What up, YouTube fam? So let's see, we got authentication persisted in our Expo app. So let's take a look at how we can use that Apple authentication, that Apple ID token that we got, and use it to authenticate requests to our Django REST Framework backend. Let's go ahead and share here. All right, so we have that running, and we have our backend running, and we can see that here. So we will actually remove, we'll do a new branch. Let's see. All right. We can go ahead and just remove the accounts here. We'll kind of start from scratch here. We'll delete everything. Okay, that's looking good. And we want to remove this here. Cool. So let's go ahead and run the server. If you're not familiar with Django, pretty easy to run migrations here. So we have it running, and we can just go into our folder and just run migrate, and then that should do the trick there. Cool. So front end and that. Awesome. Let's go ahead and start a new app for Apple authentication. Or we'll just call it Apple users, I guess. That's really what this will be. Cool. So we got that running. We'll go ahead and install that in our Django project. And cool. So that's working now. Let's take a look at some of the docs for Apple ID token JWT. That's not what we want. We're really just looking for this ID token. Yeah, these are the docs we want. So let's go ahead and pull that in, because really we're looking for the identity code token is a JWT or JOT and contains the following claims. These are the fields that we see in here when we get the actual token kind of info. So if you remember, we have that in the scripts there. So let's take a look at what we got here. So issuer identifies the principal that issues the identity token. It'll always be that. The subject registered claim identifies the principal that's the subject of the identity token. Because this token is for your app, the value is the unique identifier for the user. Okay, so that sub field is really what we're looking for. The audience is the client ID from your developer account issued at expiration. The nonce field, this value mitigates replay attacks. If you're not familiar with what a replay attack is, It basically is when someone intercepts the traffic and can send the data again. And then email verified. So email, a string value that represents the user's email address. The email address is either the user's real email or the proxy. So that's when they do like the hide my email thing. Whether or not the email is verified is private. So yeah, I guess if it's hidden, it's going to be true. If not, it's going to be false. Real user status appears to be a real person. Interesting. So we can use that to mitigate fraud. That's kind of neat. And then what's transfer sub? A string value that represents the transfer identifier for mitigating users or for migrating users to your team. Bringing new apps into your team. Interesting. Okay. Use the authorization code to verify the token claims with Apple servers and exchange them for refresh tokens. Okay. So let's see. First thing first, let's get this all kind of hooked up. I think we already got it hooked up though. Yeah. All right. So we don't necessarily want that to be there. And we want this to just be a regular old model. Okay. So for each user, we should only have that. So Django one-to-one. Let's look at the docs here. Let's just do more links. Just go from there. Okay. So I think let's read a little bit about the one-to-one. So that's the type that it is. Can I do okay, so this basically means no user. So what we're doing here is we're using the Django settings to get whatever the user model is, because in Django, if you have a different user model, you don't want to just use the default one that gets imported from Django contrib. It's best practice to use that just in case someone installs your application and they have a custom user model. So, yep, that should be that. And then this is actually just going to be a char field. But it will have to be unique. I'm just going to trust that Apple is going to make that unique, and if it's not, then later on down the line we can figure that out. But that's basically what we want. So let's go back. Okay, so So the only thing that's required is a username. So are we getting anything that could resemble a username? I guess the subject identifier could be a username. Okay, so let's go back and let's open it up on our app here. And let's just go ahead and get a new one. Oh, that's a bummer. To front end app. Yeah, we'll have to change all this. The sign-in page. So let's do that, and we have to log out and log back in. There we go. So let's now see what we get. So I guess we could use the sub as the username when we create kind of this user model, but what we actually want to do is make that a little more modular in case someone does have their own custom user model that doesn't rely on a username. So let's see. So we have that there. Let's do so that's going to create that. And if we look at here, let's refresh this. It should give us oh, I didn't migrate it. So now we should have that in here. Cool. Let's take a look at the docs on how to authenticate with Django REST Framework. Setting the authentication scheme. Okay, but this is going to be a custom authentication. Let's see if there's a package. Hey, look at that. Oh, haha. I think that's actually our video. It is. That's kind of cool. All right, so apparently there's not a whole lot with this. Yeah, so we're going to do a custom authentication class. So let's do a new thing. We'll just do that. And then some header. Okay, now we want to take kind of that script that we wrote and we want to productionalize it a little bit more. So we'll already have that. This is the info that we won't have. So let's take that and paste it over here. So, yep, up here. If not, so if there is no ID token, just return none for that. Looking at this, it does have to return this tuple. I'm not exactly sure what this second property is here. Here we go. Subclass base authentication and override the authenticate. The method should return a tuple of user and auth if authentication exceeds or none otherwise. Typically, the approach you should take is if authentication is not attempted, return none. Any other authentication schemes also in use will still be checked. If it's attempted but fails, raise authentication failed exception. Okay, probably won't do that, but we'll see. So, ID token. I'm not sure why it's not picking up the right imports. We'll have to look at that too. So we do need these Apple public keys. Let's go back to here and let's grab this. And let's throw this into the settings because it's more than likely these aren't going to change very often. All right, let's see if we can. Yeah, why is that not? Requests are totally in there. That's okay. We can still just do that. That's fine. And the reason why we're doing it in here and not kind of in here within this is we really just want this done one time so we're not rate limited by Apple and be nice to them. So there, and then in here. And you always want to import settings from Django conf instead of whatever the project name is. Again, it's just a Django thing because people can have them in non-standard locations or what have you. And this just makes sure that you're always importing the correct thing. So we did that should get us the key that the JWT is using. And then, yep. And then ID token. And then audience is going to be there. And then that will give us the algorithm that it's using, which should just be RSA, but we'll just dynamically do it just in case. So then we'll use a data class for this so that if anything ever changes, should throw an error and we should be notified about it. Let's go back and see what we got. Oh, let's just do it from here. Oop. Number of seconds, nonce is a string. That's going to be a Boolean. That's a bool. Yeah, this is, yeah, the real user status one is interesting. That's an int. And then transfer sub is a string. Okay. I do like data classes. They're simple. They're easy to work with. It just works. So then let's do verify decoded. And then there we go. Do I not have user in here? Oh. Again, we want to do this get user model from Django. So after this, if the user doesn't exist, then we want to create them in our database. So we'll just do a logger here. I'll do a log. So then what we want to do is that, and then still return the user. Yeah, so now that we have that in place, let's see. Let's make a let's just make a it's unfortunate. Like a regular view here, like an API view. And then this will just be a get, I guess. Do validate ID token. And then yeah. There we go. So that's an example of what we want to do. It looks like we actually call, like it's just the full name of the class. So we have that. And then I guess we can just throw the URL right in here. Let's see. So we can use Bruno here. Let's rename. If you don't know what Bruno is, it's an open source Postman alternative. That's pretty much it. So yeah, validate. Okay, so why, let's see, where, all right, what was the issue here? Cannot apply Django model permissions. And I think that comes from this. Django permissions are a non-read only. So basically, we'll just take this. We'll sort this in a minute. All right, let's try that again. And then let's see what we're getting here. Okay, so we got a 403. That's cool. That's more or less what we wanted because we're not sending in this. So X, let's just do X Apple ID token. Signature. Oh, sweet. All right, that's looking better. So now let's take this and throw this in and see what we get. Okay, so internal server error. Oh, C hash. Okay. So if we go back to that run and see what the output was. Yeah, was that not in the docs? Interesting, it's not. All right, let's try again. So real user status wasn't returned either. I really like that to be in there though. And then transfer sub is an optional field. All right, let's go back to the authentication because we want that to be created. Yeah, let's just see. Ooh, we're authenticated. So now if we look at the users, it does show up. So we don't get the user's first name, we don't get the email, we don't get any of that, and that's okay. We don't really care about that too much. This is really all the info we're trying to collect here. If we go back and if we look at our logs here, okay, so we don't have this debug log. We'll work on getting that in a minute. We have to look at the user info. And then we also want to do and then that. And what we really want is to do this inside of a transaction. There. So now if we were to delete this user again, okay. Oh, yeah, we can just do that. That's fine. Now we should have that, and we should have that. Beautiful. Well, that worked splendidly. We don't need the test there. We don't need that file. Do need that file though. And we do need the views for that testing purpose there. Sweet. So now we have a route that we can authenticate to and kind of validate the token, and we have a class that works to authenticate the user. What happens if we do it again? And if we look at the database, it's just the single user there. You may be wondering how we can access the user info here. So let's do that. So yep, did confirm that the user is there. So let's do all that. Cool. So we got that set up. Which is pretty exciting. So now if we use that authentication class in our Django settings, kind of the project settings as a default, then every route will be protected by it. And then we'll always be able to access which user's doing the thing. And kind of the neat thing about this, we can even take a look here. There is no password. We're not storing anybody's password hash, which is huge. It is interesting that the last login is not set. And that one's interesting because if we were to set it here, if we were to set it in here, it would update every single time the user sends a request, which is not what we want. So I'm not sure how we do that. We are going to rename this though to just Apple ID token. With a capital. There we go. yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. Hope you guys learned something. And not quite sure what we'll do next time. We'll probably work on creating some sort of like Axios interceptor, so that when we make requests in our front end, it just kind of always uses that ID token that we've stored there. But yeah, that'll be it for this one. Cool. Catch you guys later.